How many bespoke and arguably insane ideas and games end up being curtailed by committee decision-making and profitability metrics? You could probably argue the answer is most, and that it's not inherently a bad thing. Vision requires purpose and an awareness of how that vision will be perceived. With these things in check, you can start planing down the rough edges of your insane idea to make something smoother and more palatable to the consumer. Awareness is what removes the blinders and allows a wider field of vision. But sometimes when you can see everything that's possible, you end up with option paralysis. Today we're talking about a video game mechanic that was built with the blinders firmly in place. Laser focused on building a structure that is both complicated and elegant, easy to understand, and also horrifyingly complex. A single aspect of a single game that is so unique that to call it revolutionary is an understatement. To call it inspirational is to do it a disservice, and to call it necessary is debatable. It transcends being just a few mere lines of code and becomes a lot of lines of code. But it transcends that too. It's art, and art comes with baggage. Art is misunderstood in its time. Art is subjected to criticisms from lay people who only appreciate art when they get to make fun of it. Am I overselling this? Probably. But it was good enough for Uma Musume to copy, and even in a simplified form, it gets praised as being one of the more fascinating mechanics in a game that makes more money every minute than existed in the first 2,000 years of recorded history. Could God develop a gacha so predatory that he himself could not spend all the income it produces? Who can say?
The almighty Aller.
You gonna argue with the Uma fans? Feel free, but personally I'd leave the blinders to the horse girls and practice a little bit of awareness. Today we try and answer the question, how complicated can a single mechanic in a video game get before it falls apart under its own weight? For the completely uninitiated, Monster Rancher is a cool little creature collecting game that differentiates itself from the Pokemons and the Digimons of the world in a few significant ways. The most important of which is that you got new monsters not by catching them, but by going to the shrine, putting a CD you owned into the PlayStation, and letting the game read that CD's data and create a new little fella for you to train. It was incredibly novel at the time, and because of this, certain monsters had real-world physical scarcity, like the big bad boss from the anime only being available on a specific pressing of Beck's Mellow Gold that went out of print between the game being developed and being released, making it particularly hard to unlock 20 years later. There are over 50 various pressings of the CD, it was a popular CD, and while there may be others that also unlock Mu, only one is currently confirmed. This is something that can't really be recreated in 2025. It's a genius system that took advantage of the zeitgeist, and the moment for this kind of thing has passed us by. It belongs to a world that doesn't exist anymore. People who grew up with Monster Rancher but haven't played it in a while constantly propose solutions to this obviously easy to fix problem of CDs no longer matter, so the mechanic is effectively dead. They say we should be using our Steam libraries or like QR codes or whatever. But can you imagine a game being like, we need you to buy this Bethesda game if you want access to a specific creature? Insane decision if it was ever implemented. And QR codes, there's no personal attachment to a QR code the way there is to your favorite album, and it kind of misses the idea of why this is so beloved. The DX re-release of Monster Rancher 1 and 2 that came out in 2021 has a database of over 600,000 CDs, games, and movies you can search to generate a new monster. It's not the same, but it's probably the best modern implementation of this idea. You got a lot of options there. What I'm saying here is that I think we grossly overestimate our ability to outperform people who make games for a living.
Have you ever created a game?
When you listen to players and lack conviction in your design, you end up with multiverses. Multiverses is like 5 years away from people not even remembering it ever existed, and in no small part to constantly changing how the game played in an attempt to appease Twitter users. Don't do this.
Stop it. Get some help.
This is one of the most unique video game mechanics in the history of the industry, and it was used by a few other games as well, like VibRibbon, which made levels out of the CDs you put into your PlayStation. But this video isn't actually about the put a CD into your PlayStation and make a new monster thing. That's just one in the long list of inspired mechanics in a game you've probably never played. Nope, today's topic is the second big way that Monster Rancher separates itself from other creature collectors. Combination. A video like this would be very easy to make by pulling up a wiki, or in this case, legendcup.com, which is the best repository for Monster Rancher info on the internet, and just reading what it says verbatim and then saying I made something all on my own, dusting off my hands, collecting the ad revenue. But I think this deserves more than that. This is a love letter to a load-bearing piece of video game history, often imitated but never truly replicated. Monster Rancher doesn't have a ton of unique monsters. In Monster Rancher 2, there's only 38 main breeds, but through combining them, more than 400 are available to raise and play with. The mixed breeds average out the stats and aptitudes and attitudes of the two mons used in the combination. It also allows for endless replayability because you can take a monster like Golem, who is very strong but slow and inaccurate, and combine him with something that gives him way more speed and accuracy at the cost of lower damage output. It lets you mix and match monsters until you've got something custom tailored to your playstyle and preferences. With one monster being the main parent and one being the sub-parent, you can combine the same two monsters in more than one way. The Pokemon Fusion fan game basically took this concept wholesale and has a lot of really cool designs. Also this one, which is literally Zilla for Monster Rancher. This is just a Monster Rancher guy. On the surface, this is pretty simple, but the math going on is part of what makes Monster Rancher such an immersive and complex game. It's undoubtedly a creature collector game first and foremost, but it leans very heavily on simulation elements. Lots of hidden parameters mean that the game was not meant to be played from the perspective of full mechanical and mathematical mastery. That's a lot of M's. I'm sure they expected people to figure it out eventually, but it was going to take some time and some work to get into the nitty-gritty. It's a game about exploration and the scientific method, and when you're able to harness the full power of your research, things get crazy. Combination can be used to make unbelievably powerful monsters. You can engineer a monster strong enough to beat the game on the day it's born, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Will you ever have to do that? No. But, we're doing it for science. When you choose to combine two monsters, you may get a bunch of options. If you have a Pixie and a Hare, you can combine them with Pixie as the main breed or with Hare as the main breed, and you get two different results. So if you decide to combine Hare-Pixie mixed breed with a Tiger-Golem mixed breed, the wolf is named Tiger, it's a long story, don't worry about it, you'll get the chance to make Tiger, Golem, Hare, and Pixie, as well as Tiger-Hare, Tiger-Pixie, Golem-Hare, Golem-Pixie, Hare-Tiger, Hare-Golem, Pixie-Tiger, and Pixie-Golem, along with the two monsters that were originally used in the combination. This works via a sort of cross-multiplication. You couldn't get a Golem with a Tiger subbreed because you're exposing the Golem DNA, the Pixie DNA, and Hare DNA. You couldn't get a Pixie with a Hare subbreed from this combination either because it's only being exposed to Golem and Tiger DNA. Get it? No? It's okay, don't worry about it. Certain monsters can be unlocked after first combining any two monsters with a specific combination item. Many of the strongest monsters in the game are unlocked this way, like Dragon, Joker, and Durahan. Also some really weak ones like Ghost and Zilla, but we're not here to trash talk the goat of bipedal whales. So Titan and Baleen Mage could never. From this point on, combination gets hairy. Now you gotta keep a few things in mind here. It was the 90s. Like I explained off the top, there are a lot of hidden parameters, and none of the following is explained by the game anywhere because Monster Rancher is a simulation game, and it has game design ethos indicative of the era it was made in. It has hundreds of obtuse mechanics that it hides from the player, and this is to the game's benefit. The idea is that you're trying to manage the life of a living creature, not a spreadsheet. You become a better monster breeder as time goes on. Certain things like controlling your monster's stress and fatigue and lifespan are not immediately apparent, but eventually become the focus once your ranch is running like a well-oiled machine. Also, as we're about to see, explaining all of the following concepts would make the game trivially easy, but by obscuring them, it allows players to accidentally stumble through a few checkpoints at a time and be rewarded for it. And if you were paying attention to this info, you can build on it for next time. It also masterfully sets this whole system up to be fun for kids to play around with, but also allows adults who will more easily pick up on the complicated stuff the chance to really dive into the minutia if that's how they enjoy playing games. The first monster you pick for combination is more heavily weighted in the results than the second monster, but because it's Monster Rancher, it's more complicated than that. Each monster has a hidden value, referred to as blood strength. The higher a monster's blood strength, the higher the likelihood of them spawning. I chose the earlier example monsters on purpose, one, because each monster in the combination can combine with each other, so you get a bunch of different options, and two, because Golem and Pixie have the highest blood strength of all monsters, which really cranks up their chance of being born. Even though they were the secondary monsters in their respective combinations before being smushed together with Tiger and Hare, the Golem and Pixie main breeds had a significantly higher % chance to spawn than what would otherwise be expected. If I was to reverse them to have Golem and Pixie as the main breeds in their combination, you can see how much more extreme this gets. Blood strength is extremely important to keep in mind to try and make our super baby end result. Disc chips can also increase a monster's chance to appear on the pedestal. This works a little bit differently in DX versus the original PS1 release. The TLDR, since it's not actually very useful, is that a monster's disc chip will increase the chance of that main monster being born if they're in the combination results somewhere already. Disc chips also can be used to give your monster bonuses, battle specials, and some other perks. Drill bonuses give your monster +1 to a stat when doing specific drills, which can be a godsend for certain monsters. If you're trying to build a speedy monster, for example, with a monster that has a hard time raising speed like Golem or Monal, Ghost Chips are a great way to boost their gains since you'll be doing maybe hundreds of dodge drills during their life. Every single time they do a dodge drill, they will get 1 additional point, shown here in the total. As a side note, it's possible to see a +1 bonus on a gain of 1 total, which can be confusing, but mons with really bad stat gains, for example Monal's speed, can actually roll a 0 during the baby months, which normally rounds up to 1 regardless. In this scenario, the +1 gets applied before rounding, so it doesn't look like anything happened. The +1 also can't make the drill exceed the maximum cap of 15 on a light drill or 20 on a heavy drill. Battle specials are conditions that trigger during battles and give your monster huge advantages. I'm not going to go over all of them here, but I'll link to an earlier video where I got into a lot of detail on each one and I explain how to use them. Battle specials can be inherited without disc chips at a % chance if the parent has one, but chips guarantee they'll be inherited. The most common chips for this are Hair, which gives Grit, arguably the most powerful battle special, and Dragon for Fury, which doubles your damage and Withering, which is also arguably the strongest battle special, but it's just unlikely to trigger. Fury is also the hardest battle special to inherit through combination, so a lot of people use Dragon chips to avoid another challenge on the combination RNG gauntlet. There are tons of other miscellaneous perks you can get through combination, and they're pretty weak so no one really uses them for anything, but I figure I'm never really going to talk about them again, so I might as well mention them here. And additionally, there are a few other combination items that aren't disc chips that give small bonuses to combination. Parent order also matters significantly for passing on techniques. Techniques are the attacks your monster learns and can be inherited through combination. If the baby monster is the same main breed as the parent you choose, so say they're both pixies, it'll inherit 2/3 of the techniques the parent has learned, barring special techs, which can't be passed down. If the parent has 6 learned techniques, not including the 2 basics, each tech has a chance to be rolled, with 4 being ultimately chosen. But again, since this is Monster Rancher and nothing is simple, it gets murky. It populates the learned techniques one at a time and not all at once, which is a very important distinction. If your Pixie has the entire Ray tech chain, that is Ray and Mega Ray and Giga Ray, each of these has an individual chance to roll on the baby. If a technique is a later stage in the chain, say Mega Ray, and it gets rolled early, the baby will also automatically inherit the previous step in the chain. This means that on a monster with 4 techs to be learned, rolling Mega Ray first means that Ray is guaranteed to roll second, leaving you with only 2 remaining techs that can be learned. In a similar vein, Giga Ray being rolled will automatically force Mega Ray to be inherited too, but this doesn't keep continuing on down the chain to Ray, meaning it's totally possible, and actually preferable competitively, to have a Pixie with Giga Ray and Mega Ray, but no base Ray itself, which is a notably weak technique. If the last technique rolled in this 4 out of 6 example is a later stage of a tech chain, it will still inherit the previous tech in the chain, even if this results in more techs than you expected. So say the game already rolled 3 techs, and then it rolls Giga Ray as the 4th and final tech that would be inherited, you will also inherit Mega Ray for free. So you can technically inherit 5 out of 6 techniques if you get lucky enough. This is all RNG, there's nothing you can do to put your finger on the scales here. Now all of this only matters if the main breed of the first parent and the baby matches up, i.e. the first parent is Pixie and the baby is also Pixie. If it doesn't, then the baby can learn up to 4 techniques max, 1 of each type, Sharp, Heavy, Hit, and Withering, and the highest priority of each if they were able to try and learn them themselves. This can be a quick way to learn a bunch of techs, but they tend to be weaker or, at least the earliest available techs the new monster can learn. After you pick your 2 mons for combo, Daj, the lab assistant, will tell you what he thinks of the combo. By the end of the video, you'll be able to suss out bad combos for yourself at a glance. There's not actually much to memorize here. But most monsters can be combined to at least some degree of success, and still probably way more success than you would surmise by just casually monster mashing on your own. Daj's assumptions on the final result come from the ordering of stats on the 2 monsters being used in combination. If all 6 stats match from highest to lowest on both parents, he'll say it's a great combo. So why is he apprehensive about this one? Well, that's because the ordering isn't actually based on the numbers you see here. Each monster's stats, for the purposes of combination, have a multiplier based on their affinity to gain points in that stat. Purple Hair has a maximum power gain of A, which is a 2 times multiplier. It has a speed gain of B, which has a multiplier of 1.5. A C for life and skill, which is a 1 times multiplier, a D and a 0.5 multiplier for defense, and a minimum E gain in intelligence, which results in a peculiar 0 times multiplier. So if you take this Purple Hair, you can see how its stats don't necessarily line up for combination in the way you would expect. If your goal is to make a strong baby monster, lining up the parent's stats after these multipliers are applied is maybe the most important step. Exact final values matter, with the order of the monster's base stats being used as a tiebreaker. Yeah, I guess we gotta talk about base stats. Each monster has base stats that they start the game with at default if they get no bonuses through combination. They're the same as if you get a monster from the market. Like these are Mochi's base stats. Monsters from the shrine can have stats that vary from the baseline. The base stats are important for early game and completely warp how new players may think about the strength of a given monster, but they're also important for combination. Dadge's message turns out to be a bit misleading because while he's accurate and will let you know if everything's lined up nicely, there's a chance it's all for naught. And that's because you'll see the best results if the base stats of the resulting baby monster also line up highest to lowest with the stat order of the parents. Two parents with their stat orders lined up perfectly after being weighted by their stat growths can still result in something lackluster if the baby's base stat order isn't congruent. As long as you can line up a few important stats with the baby monster you want to make, you should be able to give yourself a huge early advantage. Alright, so we covered a lot. Before we move on, let's do a quick recap of all the things that are involved in combination. Blood strength determines the odds of a given monster being born. Disc chips are great for getting battle specials and drill bonuses, but not super valuable for increasing combination odds. All monsters have a baseline stat line. Compatibility is measured by how well the two parents' stats line up from highest to lowest, with tiebreakers taking a monster's baseline stats into account. A monster's stats are adjusted for this by a multiplier based on their affinity for growth in those stats. The best combinations will result from parents whose adjusted order of stats matches each other, as well as the stat order of the resulting baby's baseline stats. Alright, so let's do all that before we move on and see what we get. We'll use monsters with incredibly high stats for this because, eugenics, and also higher stats do result in higher baby stats, and we're trying to make a stronger baby. While the stats don't seem to line up on these two right away, we can see the multipliers adjust things to be copacetic. These also match the target baby's baseline stats, so I think we're ready. Everything is lined up perfectly. Even Dadge says he's happy. It's go time. We spent time getting two parents ready just for this, and well, that's okay, I guess. But I was promised being able to beat the game with something straight out of the gate, and this isn't that. So what gives? The last and maybe most insane part of the puzzle, the piece that stops this from being a rote ranch by numbers excursion that somebody could accidentally stumble onto as a child and turns it into RNG hell, is that the lower the chance of the combination result, the bigger the boost to the baby's stats. Using two of the same main breed monster will result in high chances for a monster to be born, and because of that, there will be lower bonuses attached to it. Let's use a combination that has a low chance of success. 2%? Oh, hell yeah. We're min-maxing now. Or max-minning, I suppose. So what happened here? Well, a bug in the DX version of the game carries over from the original Monster Farm 2, in which a monster with a 2 to 3% chance of being born will always just have base stats. So the goal here is aim low, but not too low. Or, well, what about extremely low? A 1% combined chance can only exist between a few possible combinations of monsters that have exceedingly weak blood strength, and will result in the highest possible boost of inherited stats. Though even with this, you'll need to be wary. The last 1% in the list will never actually appear. It says 1%, but this is 0. So this is the part we gotta aim for. It's as slight of a chance as it can be, but if we manage to bullseye it, congratulations on winning the game. You've done it. This guy is as strong as the most powerful secret super boss right off the hop. So do you need something this optimized? Of course not. But we're doing it for science. The way combination is set up, you're not really expected to ever do what we just did within the confines of normal gameplay. You are expected to mess around, see patterns, maybe line up 1 or 2 stats for a still particularly impressive head start. The game tells you that the average lifespan of your monster is only a few years, though the shortest lifespan monster in DX can live over 5 years. They expect you to make mistakes. They give you a buffer to try new things. They don't tell you what's possible. In this way, the systems are set up to allow new players a little bit of breathing room, those who have played a while to begin experimenting, and those who have thousands of hours to raise something truly monstrous. Thank you guys. Oh my god, it's been 400 years since the last Rancher Rundown. The guy next door sounds like he's vacuuming marbles. I don't know what's going on. I hope it didn't show up in the script. I guess I'll hear it when I listen back. More big videos happening this year. This is the year we finish off the rest of the Rancher Rundowns. We got about 6 monsters left. This was the last big non-monster Monster Rancher Rundown. It took me 4 years, 5 years? 5 years to make a video on combination. That's crazy. But there's a lot going on here. Special thanks to Legend Cup, of course, for helping me double check a couple of things that I didn't just have in my mind palace on this one. It's so easy to just make a guide where you're just reading a wiki, right? Like, I didn't want this to be that. I really think this is like an interesting and novel mechanic that requires insight. And I think if you like truly care about something, it's worth putting in the effort. As far as streaming and stuff goes, we have the Deluxe Cup coming up very soon. Very excited about that in March. Signups are open. And yeah, it won't take 5 months for the next one, I swear.